So when I do business development for a company, I'll just walk you through it. Typically, what I'm doing is I'm identifying who are the correct people for that organization, right? We need to identify who the targets are first. You can't just talk to anybody in an organization, or you're just gonna be spinning your wheels. You need to figure out who actually buys the product and service at an organization. If you can't figure that out, you might have to talk to 10 people and they still might not know who the right person is. And so there's some detective work required up front.
Yeah.
And really, I like to say that business development people, we're just a bunch of detectives. We're like business detectives. That's what we need to figure out. We have to figure out who buys these things, right?
Yeah.
If we can figure out who buys these things, my gosh, we've never lived in an easier time to grow a business. But you need to know who actually buys your product and service. And so, I challenge all of you out there, if you're growing business, if you're growing your own business, the number one thing you need to figure out is who actually buys, what positions, right?
So, one or two books that you think that changed your life?
Oh my goodness. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Classic, like 100 years old. It's incredible.
Great book.
Everybody should read it. The second book is maybe a little less known. And I've had the author on my show twice now. His name is Dr. Jack Schaefer, and he writes two books. One book is called The Light Switch, and another book is called The Truth Detector. And they are incredible books. He was an FBI interrogator, and his job was actually to flip enemy spies to work for an opposing government. And he is absolutely incredible at the job of building connection with people to that level. And those skills are transferable to anything in life, from business to parenting to being a good partner to being a good communicator. And I would highly, highly recommend his books. Forget the reason you're there. Forget that you're there for your business. Who cares about your business in this moment? Focus on the person. Ask them, what's your name? Why are you here? What do you do? Where's your family from? Are you from the city? Like, try to understand who they are. Ask them how, what is your passions? What do you do for fun when you're not stuck at one of these horrible events? We love that is a way to disarm people, because people are already feeling very guarded. And just remember, whenever you're at one of these things, your first step should be make them feel comfortable, make them feel relaxed. And you do that by asking really good questions about them, not about you, about them.
Welcome to the show. We have a very special guest today, Kelly Kennedy. Kelly, welcome to the show. Let me introduce you properly, Kelly. Kelly Kennedy is a visionary entrepreneur, an esteemed business leader, renowned for his groundbreaking contributions to the field of business development. As the founder and CEO of Capital Business Development, Kelly has propelled the company to the forefront of the industry, offering innovative solutions that drive tangible results. In addition to his executive role, Kelly is the creative force behind the Business Development Podcast, a critically acclaimed platform that he founded, produces, and hosts. The podcast has quickly become a global phenomenon with over 160 plus episodes and a presence in the top 100 charts in more than 31 countries. Notably, the Business Development Podcast has received prestigious accolades, including the Best Business Podcast Award from Quill Inc. in 2023 and the title of Best Canadian Professional Development Business Podcast by FeedSpot in 2024. Kelly's visionary leadership extends to his role as an emerging leader in the sales category, recognized in the Peaks 2024 Emerging Leaders list. His strategy acumen and dedication to the excellence have solidified his position as a trailblazer in the business development arena. Driven by a relentless pursuit of excellence and growth, Kelly is committed to revolutionizing traditional business practices. Through Capital Business Development and his podcast, he empowers professionals worldwide to embrace innovation and achieve unparalleled success. Kelly Kennedy's visionary leadership, coupled with his strategy acumen and his expertise, continues to inspire individuals and organizations shaping the future of business growth and development on a global scale. Kelly, welcome again, man. So good to finally do this. And before I forget, today is International Podcast Day, and it is so amazing to sit with you, with a fellow podcaster, and that is so amazing.
It is incredible, and happy International Podcasters Day, Vijay, and the honor is mine, my friend. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Please tell us a little bit more so that listeners get to know all about you.
Well, my name is Kelly Kennedy, born and raised in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, about an hour from where Vijay lives at this point in time. Just a business development background kind of guy. I grew up in sales and marketing. One of my first jobs was working on a car lot, parking cars, and the whole time that I did that, I just wanted to sell them. And it's a funny story, Vijay, because I went to my sales manager when I was 18 years old at the car lot, and I said, "Hey, I've been parking these cars for 3 years. I know them inside and out. I probably know them better than half your salespeople. Can I become a salesman?" And he looked at me and laughed and said, "No, you can't.
No.
Not yet." And he said, "But Kelly, if you go and get some sales experience, we will have a very different conversation." And so literally, dude, like not 2 weeks later, I was working at a little electronics store. It's a big electronics chain now, but called Vijayan's Electronics in Edmonton. And I worked there for about a year, I think, Vijay. And then I went back and I ended up getting that job on the car lot. And I did that for a whopping, I want to say like 3 or 4 months, because the 2008 market crash happened.
Wow.
And it was really great. And then it wasn't really great. And I didn't feel good about it. And I left. And from there, I ended up in various parts sales positions for a lot of years. I worked with a large oil and gas parts sales company in Edmonton for a while. And I did trips back and forth from Fort McMurray. And then I worked with another one in Spruce Grove for a bit. And I was about 20 years old. And my sister came to me, Vijay, and she goes, "Kelly, what the hell are you doing with your life?" And I was like, "I don't know. I need to get away from sales. I need to run as far and as fast as I can." And so in my mind, I'm just going to go do business school.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I ended up in business school, literally with the goal, Vijay, of running away. I didn't want to do sales anymore. I didn't want anything to do with that. In my mind, I thought, I'm going to go to business school. I'm going to get an operations manager job. I'm just going to run the day-to-day and life will be great. And as me and you know, that isn't exactly how it turned out. I ended up getting a job right out of college for a small startup oil and gas inspection company. And I'll just give them a shout out. They're still around today, Angritty Inspection. And the owner there took a chance on me, a young punk. I was only 23 when I started working there. And I was there for about a month. And he looked at me and said, "Kelly, we got you an admin and operations role, but like you're really great at relationship building. Like we need business.
You are.
Will you
100%.
Will you do that?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Sure, I'll do business development." And then I immediately ran to my computer and Googled, Vijay, what is business development? I'd never heard of it. I never thought about business development in college, even in business school, right? And yeah, dude, I ended up doing operations and business development for that company for the better part of 10 years. And then I went off and started my own business development firm and subsequently the business development podcast. And
Right.
I get to meet amazing people like you every Friday.
Oh no, I had so fun doing the episode with you. I so enjoyed it. It was amazing. Thanks for that beautiful introduction, Kelly. I have a lot of other things that to get into. Like
Of
I'd like to
course.
know all about you. So, business mindset. Like, did you always have this business mindset growing up, Kelly? How was growing up like?
Yeah, I think so. I was that kid who went out and I shoveled sidewalks when I needed money. Nobody was going to give me money. I grew up in a middle class
Mm,
family. For the most part, we made what we could. And if I was lucky, I got some things I wanted. But I was always taught from a young age that if I wanted it, I was going to have to go out and get it myself. And, that mentality has carried me through a lot. And what I didn't realize was that is an entrepreneurship mentality, right? Like you don't
right.
wait for someone to give you anything. You
Right.
go out and find it yourself. And so ironically, my parents instilled to me at a young age, really entrepreneurial values.
Right. Right. Got it. And like, I mean, getting into business development for anyone hearing it, we hear this term BD, business development, all the time. And I wanted to ask this question, like,
Yeah.
what is business development?
Okay.
I mean, who's better than you to ask that question, isn't it?
Yes. Business development, the secret and the problem that everybody seems to get wrong about it is that there's only one word you really need to emphasize in business development, and it is new. New. Everybody gets it confused and they say, what is business development? Is it repeat business with my clients? Is it, long-term relationships? And yes, it is, depending on the position in your company. But what business
Right.
development is really about is generating new opportunities, new relationships, building new partnerships, going out and finding new customers, not ones you already knew, not just leveraging your back catalog of people which is what I think
Right.
a lot of people think business development is. And they hire business development people and they say, great, you've been in the industry for 20 years. You must know everybody. And maybe, but a lot changes even year
Yeah.
to year. And
Yeah.
so if you don't get really good at developing new relationships, at being able to pitch new people, at being able to, make what I like to call active marketing and make real calls, real emails with people to get real meetings and build a real relationship, you're going to be
Right.
dead in the water faster than you like.
Right. Right.
So the
Absolutely.
the
Sorry, go ahead.
secret really is new. It's just new.
It's new. Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit on new? I mean, just trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah. So when I do business development for a company, I'll just walk you through it. Typically,
Yeah.
what I'm doing is I'm identifying who are the correct people for that organization, right? We need to identify
Got
who
it.
the targets are first. You can't just talk
Right.
to anybody in an organization or you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You need to figure out who actually buys the product and service at an organization. Because if
Right.
you can't figure that out, you might have to talk to 10 people and they still might not know who the right person is. And so there's some detective work required up front.
Yeah.
And really, I like to say that business development people, we're just a bunch of detectives. We're like business detectives. That's what we need to figure out. We have to figure out who buys these things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If we can figure out who buys these things, my gosh, we've never lived in an easier time to grow a business. But you need to know who
Right.
actually buys your product and service. And so, I challenge all of you out there, if you're growing business, if you're growing your own business, the number one thing you need to figure out is who actually buys what positions, right?
Right.
Is it the supply chain? Which actually, a lot of the time, it's not. The supply chain gets fed companies by the people who actually buy the service.
Right.
And so a lot of people will think, well, I need to talk to supply chain, but it's not always that cut and dry. Sometimes you got to find the operations manager, the project manager, the plant manager, the person responsible for the outcome of the
Right.
value of your service. If you can figure that out, LinkedIn has made things like night and day difference.
Absolutely. And for so long, Kelly, I was thinking BD is business development. Now you told me BD is business detectives. I mean, like,
Business detectives.
thanks for sharing the new acronym with us. So thank you so much for that. So what is like, this conversation will be more like a mind map. We're trying to understand it and to
Yeah.
get to know you a little bit better. And of course, like have a good conversation, right? That's all it is about. And I'm learning it as I speak. And like in terms of like your journey to start capital business development, how was that journey and what was your motivation like before you started it?
Yeah, okay. Very interesting question. So I actually incorporated capital business development on December 3rd of 2020. And December 3rd of 2020 was actually my like 32nd birthday, I think, if I remember correctly. And it was also middle of COVID. And
Wow.
really what had happened at that point was that my boss, the person that I'd worked for the better part of 10 years, great friend, amazing individual, pulled me
Right.
aside and said, Kelly, like, I have no idea what's happening. There's limited people even going back and forth from oil and gas sites. I have no idea. Like, I'm just telling you straight out, I have no
Right.
idea what the next year or 2 years looks like. And do you have an alternative plan if things don't go the way we hope it will? And it really got my wheels turning. I thought about it for a while. I thought about the idea of something called fractional BD and really wasn't common, like never had really seen it before. And just
Right.
thought, hey, like maybe this is an option for us. And so Capital Business Development was launched in April of 2020 with the idea of I'm just going to do fractional BD. And what was really cool was my employer was my very first client. So he let me go and then hired me right
Amazing.
back on contract and gave me that 6-month boost I needed. And the rest was history, dude. It turned out that fractional BD was something people were really interested in. And actually, the further that I go down this path, the more I realize that actually what companies need the most is training. Most of them are, like you had mentioned, they're not really sure what business development really is or what the process should be or who should be doing it or how should it interact with the company as a whole or heck, what the hell do we do with social media because it's clearly important
Right.
now. Right?
Right. Right.
So now my passion has really started to transition. While I still do fractional BD, what I'm seeing a big uptick in is coaching clients. I have a lot of
Got
people
it.
that want to work with me on that one-to-one to help them establish and build a process for their company.
Got it. Got it. And then when you look at business development as a term, I mean, there's a lot of just to understand the space a little bit better
Yeah.
for anyone listening, there's sales and there's marketing. And where does business development sit in? Does it cover both or is it just marketing? What areas does it actually cover?
It's funny. It's funny because it actually interacts with all of them, but in very
Right.
different ways, right? Like I can't do business development if I don't have marketing on my side. Like you still need marketing materials. You still need a website. You still need brochures. You still need a value proposition. And we do our best to create great value propositions, but we do rely on
Right.
marketing to help us with that. Sales tends to come in maybe a little bit after that, whereas we've now made the introduction. Maybe that person has become a client. They've chosen to order something from our business. Now it's really up to sales to establish that relationship, check in on them regularly, make sure that if there is repeat business available, that they get it. But business development should not be focusing on day-to-day repeat business sales. What they really need to be focusing on is filling that funnel with new opportunity for the business. Because Vijay, your funnel will dry up faster than you can imagine if you stop focusing
Right.
on it.
Right, right. No, that is so true and spot on. I can so relate to that. Absolutely. And then with business, there is also a constant pressure in terms of like a changing landscape, and because it's continuously evolving. No one thought the Zoom call would be so popular until
Yes.
COVID came in, but it was there for
Yes.
like 10, 15 years even before. But like it became so popular. And now there is AI, of course, in the last year or two,
Oh my
and
gosh.
there's
Yeah.
a continuous change in business landscape
Yeah.
all the time, and businesses are under constant pressure to innovate and invest in technology and whatnot, and marketing and whatnot, right? So what is your kind of like the go-to ways of adapting to change and be ready to weather the storm, right?
I love that, dude. I love that. Yeah, you nailed it, dude. We're only experts until yesterday. Any of us, right? The world is evolving so quickly that
Right.
even if you were an expert yesterday, tomorrow a new technology or a new way of interacting with people is going to come out of nowhere. And if
100%.
you're not prepared and willing to learn that opportunity and willing to expand, you're going to be left behind. And that applies to me. That applies to you. That applies to an expert in any field at this point. Part of being an expert in any field is also staying up to date with how that field is changing and
Right.
changing with it, right? We can't get stuck in the past. We can't just be like, this is the way we've always done it, or I would still be driving door to door, handing brochures to people in the most inefficient way possible. Does it work? Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not efficient. And in a day where efficiency rules and really we need to be growing our companies as fast as we humanly can just to keep up with costs and everything else, we can't be doing things the same old inefficient ways.
Right, got it. And what do you see is something like emerging trend in the overall business area for any entrepreneur trying to innovate? What are some emerging trends they should pick up? I would think AI is obviously one of them. And then as a BD person and a business development coach, is there any emerging trends that you have spotted early on for any entrepreneurs listening?
Yes. You know what? Yeah, while we're on the AI subject, I'm going to talk on one of the greatest ones. Honestly, probably my favorite emerging AI that came in for business development is the advent of meeting summaries, right?
Got it.
In the old days, we would have a conversation like this. I still take notes because I'm old school and I love notes, but we would be having a conversation like this. And at the end, I would have to be like, oh, okay, what were the key takeaways from that? Was there something I missed? And inevitably, we listen as best as we can, but as humans, we make mistakes and inevitably we miss things.
Right.
And now we can have a conversation just like this, and I can use a program like tactic.ai, but there's lots of ones you can use. That's just the one that we've tried and it works, so we use it. But tactic.ai is amazing because it listens to this conversation. And at the end, it says, hey, here's the detailed meeting summary of everything that you just chatted about with Vijay. Oh, and by the way, these were the key things you guys hit on. Here's the opportunity with Vijay, if there is an opportunity. And here are the next steps, right? And you guys know, if you listen to my podcast at all, I always hammer on the 5 magic words of every meeting. What are the next steps, right? If we don't know what's next, that meeting is useless, right? So yeah, man, meeting summaries has been great. ChatGPT has obviously been great. My rule with ChatGPT though is insert humanity back into it. Because if all you do is copy ChatGPT, you do sound like a robot.
Yeah, 100%. Very true, very true. Sometimes, have you noticed, in some of these like social media posts, you can immediately tell that is an AI post?
Yes, you absolutely can. And so while it is amazing, what I like to do sometimes is I'll type something up completely myself. I'll input it into ChatGPT and I'll just say, hey, this is what I would say. How would you improve this? And sometimes the stuff that it'll feed out is like, wow, like the way that it lays it out is a much better structured way than I would have ever laid it out. I'm not an English major. I do not write well. I do as best as I can, but I'm a BD guy, right? And so sometimes, especially when you're trying to communicate a value proposition or build value in a product, ChatGPT can do an absolute incredible job. But what I would say is don't prompt it. Type something out and then give it what you've typed and say, how would you improve this to communicate XYZ value proposition? And then insert maybe, a paragraph or two that ChatGPT spits out. Because maybe it does summarize it much better than you could have. But that doesn't mean that there's no value in the original thing that you were going to say in the way that you were going to say it.
Yeah. I was listening to, I think, Chamath on Joe Rogan, I believe. I'm just like paraphrasing something like, I think, what is the value that you're drawing and giving back to the people that you interact with, right? If your value was like 1x before AI and now you're using AI, and if you're able to leverage and give value probably 5x or 10x better and leveraging AI, and I think that is phenomenal, right? So I think people should not be away from AI, but embrace it in a way that actually enables them and empowers them in their day-to-day. And then, and speaking of like business and running a business, you know it, I know it. There are obviously so many challenges with it, and with the clients, I face it. And we think, hey, here's a strategy that we want to go with, and here's a roadmap that we think. It hardly ever goes as per the plan, right? So there's always challenges. There's always like challenge from growth point of view, from schedule point of view, cost point of view. Would you like to bring some good examples that anyone would seem valuable in terms of, hey, here are the challenges we faced, and this is something like we did?
Well, I would say, as somebody whose plans rarely go to plan as well. Yeah, man. You know what? The secret, I always say, at this point, I've interviewed well over 120 entrepreneurs, Vijay, and it's been incredible. But one of the cool things that I get when I get that level of exposure to incredible people is I get to see the trends, okay? The trends that I'm seeing in business, in entrepreneurship, is that plans rarely go to plan. Rarely. Like, I would say 5 to 10% of the time. The other 95% of the time, there's a pivot, there's a switch, there's maybe something completely different. I think
Right.
the secret that I've learned is that you just have to be ready to say yes when the opportunity comes, right? Like, for instance, the Pathfinders podcast, right? Was this
Right.
even a plan for you 2 years
Ne-
ago? Was this even remotely
never.
on the table? Okay.
Never.
The business development podcast wasn't even an idea until I would say December of 2022. And it launched in February of 2023. So a 4-month span from idea to concept to I'm doing this, 4 months.
Right.
I didn't see it coming. I didn't plan it. Here was the plan. Here was the idea in my head in 2022. Things are changing. I see it all around me. How is Capital Business Development and Kelly Kennedy going to adjust to this change? What are the things I like? Well, I don't mind watching YouTube, but I really don't want to do a video. I love podcasts, but my gosh, what do I know about audio production or podcasting? And I kind of floated back and forth with that, with being like, okay, and I was afraid to put myself out there. Like I struggle with, meeting anxiety, with, performance anxiety, with stage fright. Like this was not, I'm an introvert, man. Like this was not
Right.
going to be my plan, right?
Yeah.
But it hit me that the new world wasn't going to care if I was an introvert. It wasn't going to care. What it was going to care about was, what am I doing, right?
Yeah.
And so I just, I went for it, man. And episode 3 almost didn't come out. And I say it all the time on the show. Episode 3 is amazing, by the way. There's nothing wrong with episode 3. It was me. I was like, am I good enough to do this? Why the hell am I here? Like, what am I doing? This, like,
Right.
I was self-doubting, like, no tomorrow. But you know what? I released episode 3. And the rest is history. We're now on episode 173, actually, literally this week. Which is crazy.
There you go.
Yeah, man. And so it just, I think the secret, and like what I want to say to all my entrepreneurs out there, I get it. You're afraid. Yeah. I was afraid. Vijay's afraid. We're all afraid. What we're doing is we're taking calculated risks, and we're moving forward anyway. And we're building ourselves up as we go. The plan, it's never going to go to plan. It's like, I've talked to people who are like expert strategizers, and what they say is that 95% of business plans do not go to plan. Like we suck at executing business plans in the exact way we plan them. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't make them. I think that for me, every year I sit down and I write down the goals that I want for the podcast and the company in 2024. I was just looking at them actually before this show, Vijay. Most of them I didn't accomplish, but 1 or 2 I did. And so I feel like you have to take the wins and be like, you know what, that's incredible. At least I did that. We're going to hit maybe 1 or 2 more next year. And I don't know which ones they're going to be.
Right. But you better be prepared than others, right? So that is good. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's basically, it's not just be prepared. It's just be ready to say yes, right?
Right.
It's not going to go to plan, but opportunities are going to come. They may not be the opportunities you planned for, but I bet you there'll be great opportunities nonetheless.
That's right. I mean, that was going to be my next question, because like when you see success, and I've understood, like maybe you can correct me here, when preparation meets opportunity, there seems to be a success there, right? I mean, like and people find it difficult adapting to change as well, and it's easier said than done, right? Okay, how do you prepare? How do you adapt to change? And like, because like obviously there are 100 different ways you can prepare for different opportunities. So how are you going to prepare? From an individual point of view, it's different. From a business point of view, it's different. What do you say might be the best strategy for adapting to change, actually? Because like change is obviously going to happen, whether it's business or an individual situation.
You're never going to grow doing the same thing you've always done. I think that's
spot on. Yeah.
Right? Like and it sucks, dude. I hate saying it because as somebody who has struggled greatly with pushing my own boundaries, like man, we're on LinkedIn together. Like you've seen the show evolve over the past 2 years. You've seen things change, but like I am usually a little behind the curve, and it's not because I don't know what I should be doing. It's because I am uncomfortable with what I have to do next. Does it stop me? No. It slows me down, but it never stops me, because at the end of the day, I realize that if I, Kelly Kennedy, want to grow as a business owner, as a podcaster, as a parent, as a partner, I have to put myself in uncomfortable situations, learn and grow from them, and then hit a new level, right? There's no way to hit a new level of normal without overcoming and pushing through that challenge. And so, dude, like the older I get and the more that I go down this path, the more I realize I'm going to have to put myself in more public speaking engagements. I'm going to have to put myself in more, more seminars and business meetings and uncomfortable rooms with big uncomfortable people.
Right. Get uncomfortable.
Way.
Yeah, getting uncomfortable, I think is I've seen that to work a lot, because like doing the same thing and complaining about it doesn't achieve different results unless you're trying new things, right? Unless you're trying to be ready to get uncomfortable, right? Comfort doesn't seek you success. I mean, rarely does.
Well, yeah, and you can't see what you need to do stuck in a silo, right? Like let's say for instance, like let's just take podcasting for example, right? Me and you could never really get truly better at podcasting long term without trying to understand what the top dogs in podcasting world are doing and trying to emulate with them, right? And it's the same for business. Like, how can you achieve the next level of efficiency, the next level of financial growth without speaking, hopefully, to somebody who's done it, who can encourage you, who can give you the tips and tricks that you might need to know? And like while we live in a time of podcasting and people are listening to this right now, trying to gain something from it, you have to keep looking to learn from people who have done it and maybe been through the same challenges you're in today. Like, there's no way forward without emulating what other people
100%.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you are going to have to emulate success to achieve success.
Got it. I'm sure like as you're working with clients and coaching people and even working with the clients, like you're trying to coach them, how can we do the business development better? And trying to get a strategy across and then like get a buy-in on that. Like what do you think is like some important mindset shifts that someone needs to adopt in terms of like from a coaching philosophy point of view?
You have to be willing to do the work, even though you're afraid of it, right? Like, what's the point of hiring a coach? Like, you're paying us a substantial amount of money to learn a lesson that will hopefully make you a substantial amount of money in the future, right?
Right.
But I can give you all the best business development tips in the world. Vijay can build you the best software in the world. But if you don't implement it, it's
that's right. Right. Yeah.
And so I think the biggest challenge that people have when they hop into a coaching scenario or where they hop into a training scenario is they're not willing to do the work yet. They're willing to explore maybe what they need to be doing, but sometimes they're not ready to do the work yet. And so like my advice would be, even if you feel like you're not ready, that's that uncomfortable feeling that you need to push through. That's that thing that me and Vijay are talking about here, where we're saying you will never achieve the next level if you're not willing to feel the uncomfort, right?
Yeah.
And we're really afraid of that uncomfort, man. And I'm right there with you. I struggle with it too, but it never holds me back for long. Eventually I realized that that's what it is. It's just me struggling with my own discomfort. And I need to do that thing. And then I do that thing, and I'm like, holy crap, well, that wasn't as scary or as hard as I thought. I was building it up so much more than it really was. And I think, like, in the business development aspect, that's people being afraid to meet other people. It's genuinely just a fear of other people. We're afraid to connect. And actually, what we're really afraid of is to be rejected. But ironically, it's just business. Like, even if they reject you, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting, they just don't have a need for that thing in that moment. And the funny thing is that I can't tell you how many times they didn't have a need for that thing in that moment. And they called me back 6 months later because that was when the need came. It's about being ahead of the need. And that might mean that you got to feel uncomfortable for a moment, but it ends up being worth it long term.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Cannot agree more, because like I've seen that the anxiety part, I'm an introvert as well, but at the same time, like you and I, when we met for lunch once, like I shared briefly about it, because I cannot afford to be an introvert when I'm putting myself out there, when I'm representing the client, when I'm giving out strategies for them in a board meeting with them. So why I got to stand up and speak and like to a broader audience, and like that is convincing. And at the same time, of course, I get uncomfortable, right? I mean, I definitely go through that, all the curves that you spoke about. I think helps people grow long term than anything else. I mean, even this podcasting, I was not a podcaster before. I draw great inspiration from you, people like Joe Rogan, and so many others. But like, I wanted to get uncomfortable, and at the same time, I enjoy talking to people also, because I felt like the more people I connect with in the business world as a network, everyone are pretty much the same, Kelly. They look and speak different slightly, but at the same time, everyone wants a safe place to live, and they just want the normal things. And so I thought, okay, let's talk to more people and see what's other side of the world happening from Edmonton to Edinburgh, right? So I just want to talk to more people across the world and see that is happening. I mean, speaking of people again, and the social anxiety part. How often is that we go and sit amongst total strangers and have a meal, and they call that as a restaurant? That's what it is called, right? I mean, like it's very often. So people like people more than we think we like them. That's my observation.
Yeah. I literally did a show like really early on in the podcast called "Performance Anxiety is Normal. You Are Normal." And what I was trying to like explain to people is that, at that point, I've probably been through, I don't know, 1,000 meetings in my life at that point, right?
Yeah.
And I still get meeting anxiety. And so it's like, I think people think that like, oh yeah, like it just goes away. And it's like, no, you can talk to like the highest performance public speakers who say, I have a moment where I freak out a little bit before I hop on stage, and I push through it, and then I get through that first minute or first 30 seconds, and then I can roll with it. But like, even the professionals, even the best of the best, they have their moment. We all have our moment, and it doesn't matter how many times. Dude, I still interview people, and I get anxious before I read, the introduction, as I'm sure you do too. Like, it's a lot sometimes to do. Especially, thank you for the incredible introduction.
Yeah.
You know how challenging that is, right?
Yeah. Virtual high five there. So
yes, virtual high five, because you don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to make a mistake, and especially when you're dealing with high level entrepreneurs, right? Like, you realize that everybody's time 100%. Is very valuable, and especially these people's time. And so we all struggle with that anxiety, man. Like, I remember sitting down for a show once, just like sweating. I was so afraid. It was one of my very first shows, one of my biggest like interviews that I'd had at that point. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I sure hope I'm good enough to do this. Right? But it's like, we're all struggling with that. We all are mentally struggling with that. I don't care whether you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 or you're the CEO of, Mom and John's breakfast cereals, whatever. Name it. We're all struggling. So you are normal. If you have fears, if you wake up at 2 a.m. hoping you can pay your employees next week, you're not alone. Almost all entrepreneurs are feeling that on some level.
That is, no, that it is there. I mean, I think when people acknowledge it, I think that's the first starting point. Yes, okay, there is anxiety. Okay, fine, let's get over it. Let's get onto the stage. Let's get into the call, and then say hello. And once we see hello and like say smile at each other, it's gone almost. Like, so it's pretty much. I'm learning it, and hopefully I'll get better at it. That's my. That's my dream, at least. And speaking of podcast, brother, like tell us more. Like what's your preparation sound like? I mean, like, because like I go through that too. I mean, like exactly like you mentioned, when I'm speaking to someone, I don't want to offend them, and at the same time be valuable for asking the right question. Things like, how do you prepare? Like, what's your learning experience been in terms of like preparing before the podcast?
Yeah, well, I think that's what's actually made me pretty successful at interviews, is that I took the interview process very seriously, and I don't wing any of it. Obviously, if the conversation takes a turn, part of being good conversationalist is to turn with it and pivot. But from the very beginning, the first thing that I do whenever I do a show prep is I start to write down the full work history of the person. Write down to as far as LinkedIn will let me know, just so that I know, because if I write it down, I remember it, right? I don't necessarily talk to them about the whole work history, but I have it all on paper. What are they CEO of? What are they a director of? What were they a business development marketer of? Whatever it is, I have it all down on a list. And then I always start with, who are they? Because at the end of the day, a good interview is about the interviewee, right? It's about the person you're interviewing.
That's right.
And so I think a lot of podcasts fall flat because they try to just like talk about a certain subject instead of talking about the subject, the person who took the time to come and spend time with them. And so for me, what's made me successful is it's exactly what you're doing, is focusing in on the person you're interviewing. Because let's get real, that's what people want to know. They want to know.
That's right.
Like they learn all about you because you have your own stuff you talk about, at least with my show I do. Yeah, we want to know what got that person to where they are today. And so if you can gear all of your questions around, sure, a subject, or, think about your listeners too, right? Like, obviously I write questions based on what might be valuable to my listeners that they could gain from this particular interview. But yeah,
Right.
like, it should always start with, who is my guest? How did they end up here? How, what are they passionate about? How did they get passionate about that? Because if you can do that, it just builds a connection that you can't really get otherwise.
Right, right, and how do we? Because like one thing I'm also like approaching and understanding is like there are a broad section of listeners,
Yeah,
and someone could be from a business background, someone would be from a medical background, and things like that.
sure.
So how do you keep it like probably neutral or relevant, and like are there any in ways of structuring questions? Do you make it like more neutral, or do you make it more about the like the autobiography of a person, like a it's all going to be a journey about the person itself?
It can be both, right? Like, let's say that you are interviewing somebody from a medical background. Well, why
Right.
wouldn't it hurt to ask them some questions regarding that history? Like, what have you seen?
Yeah.
What has it been like? What's changing? What's changing in the industry, right? It would be
Right.
questions that
Right.
I might ask. I've actually interviewed a gentleman who was a surgeon, actually. So
Right.
I had the chance to kind of do that. I guess for me too, I focus in pretty heavily on business, right? So
Right.
for the most part, it's people that have become entrepreneurs or have an entrepreneurial thing that they're talking about, or are experts in various fields. And then that allows me to create questions around the field of expertise that I might want to know, that my listeners might want to know. Always think about it. Always just come to it from a place of curiosity, Vijay, from a place of
Got it.
curiosity with everything, and you will
Right.
do just fine. Right? It's
Got
when
it.
we stop
Got it.
being curious that we fall flat on our face.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that drives me. I every time I reach out and someone asks me what drives you, it's like I say it's curiosity and courage, and I
Yes.
think that definitely drives me a lot, because if you're not curious, you won't be good enough to learn and innovate and things like that, right? And that's
Yeah.
spot on. And what would be some like one piece of advice that you would want to give anyone improve in their like overall like their from a career point of view, from a life point of view, from a business point of view? Are there, because you would have learned a lot from failures and things like that, and
Sure.
and I often say that and post about it, saying that because failure is not appreciated enough, and because you could spend an entire year, couple semesters, and not learn anything, but at the same time, failure is probably the biggest teacher. It will teach you lessons that are invaluable compared to anything else. So, what are some tips that you would give for anyone from a life, business, and coaching point of view?
I love your touching on failure. I have a bit of a double-edged sword on that one.
Okay, go
Failure
ahead.
can also be incredibly traumatic, right? And so
Yes,
depending
yes.
on how bad the failure, there's certain failure I would very discourage, and I would say absolutely do whatever you can to prevent it. But
Yeah.
yes, it's the little failures, right? Maybe they're not even failures. They're a missed proposal, or there's
Setbacks,
or somebody quits, and you need to better understand why it happened, because you're right. There's
Yeah.
lessons in those things. There's lessons in the lost proposal. There's lessons in the employee you lost, right?
Right.
Don't just let those things go over the side without doing some digging, because
Right.
the little tiny lesson that you learn from that can save you
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars or help you land that next proposal. So from
Got it.
that standpoint, absolutely learn the lessons from each little loss, but absolutely do what you can to prevent
Yeah.
major losses, right? You do not want to go bankrupt. You do not
Yeah,
want
no.
to run your business into the ground. These
Right.
are things that I think
Right.
potentially cause PTSD in people. And
Yeah.
so while I've had incredible interviews with people who have been through those very things, built back
Yeah.
amazing companies, it
Yeah.
changes them forever.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't disagree at all. Let me add additional context also, Kelly, on that, because like you go through a lot of self-help books, and there are so many authors out there, and you know it, I know it. It's out there. Getting uncomfortable, go do the hard thing. It's about the action part. Like it's
Yes.
what a Nike says. It go, just do it, right? That's what the right. That's
Yeah.
the larger portion of it. And at the same
Yes.
time, and everyday struggles are sometimes underappreciated, and the real. I mean, there was a video I saw, I think yesterday or something. I mean, the real the truth behind is, I think that's what the right word is, like, is because no one cares, right? Because like no one cares about like how far you can go and how much you succeed, how much struggles you're facing every day. No one cares whether you have fever today or not, except the family maybe. But at the same time, those struggles are real. Those unseen pains are real, and when you go through a lot of these and embrace those failures along the way, I think a stepping stone, like a series of failures, probably leads you to success. And it's not that okay, you have to succeed, you have to reach that million followers, you have to reach that 10. It doesn't happen on day one. You gain, you start with a baby step, like okay, one follower at a time, one post at a time. That's what I tell my son too. I mean, don't look at the long thing and get intimidated, right? So focus on the smaller steps, focus on the baby steps. I think that is super important. And then people often look at the bigger picture and they get, oh wow, oh no, I don't think I can never do any of this, right? So I don't want to discourage people that way, but definitely they'll be able to take their little baby steps, which they're very much capable of.
I think you're absolutely right with that, Vijay. I think you're absolutely right with that, Vijay. Ultimately, you see people don't start because they're looking at it from a big picture, right? But remember, every journey starts with one step, right? For instance, the Business Development Podcast. We're into it now for 173 episodes this week. Episode 3 almost never came out. But what I said to myself was, regardless of whether it's a great episode in my mind, right? Remember, once again, it's all perspective. Other people might find it very valuable, right? But me and you will have shows where we're like, we could have done better with it. But you know what? It's more important to put it out and then do it again the next week and the week after that and the week after that than it is to quit. Because it's much easier to keep momentum than it is to get momentum.
Right. What will be what do you think? I mean, like, what will we think? Because the way I drafted questions, of course I have questions, but at the same time I'd like to, because like even I interview people, otherwise this is by no means an interview, but I'd like to have a conversation with the person, and you being a good friend, I'd love to chat with you, Kelly. So that's where I'm coming from. So when you see that, like, so what is the wisdom behind that, in terms of keep going? What is the wisdom behind keep going, right? So that I'm sure there's a lot of like learnings behind it.
Yeah. Well, just like anybody, I've had plenty of personal challenges, in my time, right? You never know. You just never know what people are dealing with. You don't. The reality is the face we put on in the business world, the face we're putting on even right here in this show, could completely mask what's really happening behind the scenes. And I think we forget that. We take people at face value and we don't think, what else might be going on with this person? And so, like, just for instance, what about like people you work with, right? Let's say that you go in, your manager's on a rampage and you're like, what the heck is going on? Who knows? Maybe he lost his sister that week. Maybe he doesn't want to talk about it. Is not willing to share that part of himself and that pain. Maybe he's going through a divorce. Maybe one of his kids is on drugs. Who knows, right?
100%.
I think it's really important, especially as we move forward. And I think that was one of the blessings of COVID, if there was a blessing from COVID, was that ultimately people got more caring, right? People were a little more real. We're a little more willing to go there, right? We're a little more willing to be ourselves and say, look, like, this is what's going on. Sorry, this timeline isn't going to work for me this week. And heck, even me and you, we've rescheduled this a couple times now because, something came up for you, something came up for me. It just is what it is. Life is happening all around us. I'm grateful to be here, but sometimes we got to reschedule these things to make them work. And so don't be afraid to look after yourself, right? You don't have to put on a mask every day. And, I say that to people in BD because in BD, we put on masks all the time. Nobody's going to be super psyched to take the call from the like super down BD guy, right? Yeah. So you really do. You got to put on that face, you got to put on that smile, and you got to get it done. But some days you can't put on the face, man. Some days you can't put on the smile, and you need to be able to recognize what those days are and look after yourself in those moments. And I think we've sucked at that in the past. And when people suck at doing that, that's when the explosions at work happen. That's when the complete inevitability of you not being able to handle it, which was going to happen. It's just now it's happening publicly instead of being able to happen between you and the people you care about.
100%, 100%. After COVID, I think, yes, it is a blessing in disguise. And of course, things like this are also a blessing in disguise. And
Totally.
one thing I've observed is like people started connecting with each other more. I mean, with
Yeah.
like they're reaching out to people, they started being more authentic. They tried to shed some of their masks. And I think that I'm seeing as a very positive thing. And they started, I think, to appreciate life
Yeah.
in a larger sense, I would think. But still, I see there are folks around like with a ton of masks around it. You know it, I know it, and sometimes it gets very difficult to have a deep conversation. It ends up being, hey, have a good day and good night and
Yeah.
things like that, right? So
Yeah.
do you have like a personal way to actually help break into those masks and actually get to the person? Have you seen any strategies to work for you? Because the more I'm interacting with people, I'm learning it myself, but I'll also like to learn from people who are doing it themselves and trying to learn interacting with people a lot more, because
Yeah.
that is something I'd love to do more and I'd like to learn as well.
Yeah. It's always a struggle. You will always feel anxious about it.
Yeah.
You put me in a room full of people, dude, I'm automatically anxious. That's who
Yeah.
Kelly Kennedy is. I don't know why. It just is what it is. However, one thing that I've learned,
except in Boston Pizza.
except in Boston Pizza. Well, I think
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I think what I've learned is it's the same thing I talked about earlier. Be genuinely curious. Like, let's say that you're at a networking meeting. Of course, you're there for business. So is everybody else, right?
100%.
You're not there because you couldn't wait to be at a networking meeting to talk about yourself.
Yes. Yeah. True.
But, however, remember that everybody else there is also feeling that same level of anxiety. And there are ways to have conversations with them that are not aggressive, that don't come across as like, oh my gosh, I don't want to. Because remember, everybody else there is also feeling locked down, right? I don't care who you are. If you're in a room full of people, everybody is feeling guarded and locked down. So the secret is, once again, be genuinely curious. Forget the reason you're there. Forget that you're there for your business. Who cares about your business in this moment? Focus on the person. Ask them, what's your name? Why are you here? What do you do? Where's your family from? Are you from the city? Like, try to understand who they are. Ask them how, what is your passions? What do you do for fun when you're not stuck at one of these horrible events?
Right.
we love that is a way to disarm people, because people are already feeling very guarded. And just remember, whenever you're at one of these things, your first step should be make them feel comfortable, make them feel relaxed. And you do that by asking really good questions about them, not about you, about them. A good conversation, you should be able to give as little information about yourself as possible, and you should know almost everything about them. And if you do that right, they will love you for it. People love to be able to share who they are with other people. And the more that you can get good at asking those questions and just hearing people out and asking them follow-up questions regarding it, the more disarmed you're going to feel as well, and the better that relationship is going to grow for you.
That's right. No, thanks for sharing that, man. I'm learning it as I was saying. I'm learning it because I was not from a customer facing background like ever. I'm like this nerd sitting in a desk all the time. But like for a long time, I ended up hating doing it. Of course, I love my profession and things like that. But at the same time, there is some mundaneness to that in how the way people structure the corporate life, right? So the more I started reaching out to people, I love it. I mean, I should be talking to more people all the time. So maybe that's one of the reasons I'm probably doing this even. And as long as I love it, I think I'm going to be doing it and talking to more people and getting to know them a little bit, offer them value, and then and if it works out as a business, great. If not, we'll end up being good friends. And then maybe whenever they are comfortable to reach back, they can always feel free to reach back with what are the requests they have, and we're happy to help them. That's where I come from. So thanks for sharing that. And speaking of, I mean, we spoke about a lot of learnings and things like that. I mean, I mean, if you feel comfortable, do you like to share something about some of the greatest wins or excitement that you had in your life or your business? It'll be good to talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, one of the most exciting things that's happened in the business was when we won Best Business Podcast 2023 from Quill Inc. And we were only maybe 5 months old at that time, Vijay. So that was like, it was completely unexpected, got blown out of left field, and we won Best Business Podcast 2023 from Quill Inc., which was an international competition, actually. We had Smartless right above us, and I was like, what? Like, no way.
Wow.
It was very, very exciting. But you know what? The real reward, dude, comes from the clients, right? It comes from the people that you're actually genuinely able to help. Like,
right.
The podcast itself hasn't been the reward. It's been a labor of love and a lot of work. It's been the thousands of people who have reached out to me from around the world and said, I just started a business development career this week, and this has been absolutely incredible. Or I just got this incredible job, and I would have never aced the interview if I hadn't listened to your show. Or I just launched my own business, and I'm afraid, but I found your show, and it's really inspired me to keep going.
Right.
Heck, I've started a podcast, and I found your show, and it's just super, super inspiring. And I'm thankful that you share your journey with the world, right? Like, these are all, that's where the reward is, right? And you don't really see it. You don't think about that when you start your show, but you're going to find it as well, is that people are going to reach out and say, dude, you really genuinely helped me. And that's the value of what we do here. It's not about the 172 shows or however many shows you have. It's about how many people can you educate and inspire along the way.
Right. No, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it in the future. You have definitely inspired me to do a podcast, Kelly. I've never ever thought of like like doing my own podcast, like let alone having a YouTube channel, whatever. But definitely you've been an inspiration, no doubt about it. So that's that. And being in the business world, what is the advantage of it? And do you see like what's your favorite part of doing business? What is like, oh, I love it. Like, what's your favorite part of being in the business?
My favorite part about being in business is being in control of my future. I don't sit around and wait for things to come to me, right? If I need something, I'm going to go out and find it. If I want to grow my business, I'm going to go out and find new customers. If I want to evolve and do better, or if I want to buy more time back for myself, I'm going to figure out how to do that. I don't got to ask for permission. The greatest thing about being a business owner is the person you have to ask for permission. You look in the mirror and ask permission.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, it's so funny because I've talked to so many guests. I would say like, oh man, I've probably had 20 people on the show tell me mid-interview that they're no longer employable. Like, that was what being an entrepreneur did to them, because they're like, I wouldn't be able to do the things I do at a company. I wouldn't be able to get the permission to do these things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think genuinely a lot of entrepreneurs hit that wall where they're like, oh shit, I don't think I'm employable anymore.
Yeah. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it is a good thing for for folks like us.
Yeah, it definitely motivates you to pick up the phone and make a couple more phone calls that week.
100%. I've felt that way, and I've never used the word being like unemployable, but like, but the way you put it, it's so true, because I don't want to be asking permission to my supervisor or manager for doing X, Y, and Z. I want to be in control of my time and my future. As simple as that, right? So very, very well put. And what do you think is the motivation to do that every day, Kelly? Because I'll like give you the context here, because as a business owner, you're not reporting to anyone, right? Of course, you have customers and things like that. That's great. But at the same time, you control your Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, all days of the week. It's not a 9 to 5. It's pretty much a 24/7. That's what I am realizing it. And I don't mind working on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon. No problem. That's totally fine. But what is the when you're totally in control of yourself, there is also a part of like it is a lonely journey, right? I mean, people who are listening shouldn't get confused at all. It is definitely sometimes a lonely journey, and you might have to go uncharted territories and then keep making decisions day in and day out, right? Sometimes you make good decisions, sometimes you make bad decisions, right? So how do you navigate that in terms of like doing the everyday? Keep making decisions, keep moving. It's not about just do it, but at the same time, there is definitely you are walking it alone, right? Because you have to walk. You want to walk fast, so you're definitely walking it alone, probably with a small team or whatever. But definitely there are challenges going through the uncharted territory.
You need people that you're able to talk to, right? I have an incredible fiance who I'm sure I blabber on more than I should a lot of times. But my gosh, like on a hard day when I just need to like run something by someone and get some feedback,
Right.
she's incredible, right? But we all got to figure out who is that incredible person for us, right? And maybe that is maybe that's one of your
Right.
employees. Maybe that's a great entrepreneurial friend. But my advice would always be to talk to somebody who at least sees it, who at least has an understanding, right? Like I think most of us
Right.
are significant others. If we're business owners, they're seeing us in it every day. They're seeing it.
Right.
And so it's an easy conversation, but I think you've got to be a little bit careful with that because you don't want to overwhelm them either with your own fears, which maybe are not relevant to your relationship. However, if you have an incredible partner like I do, I'm able to leverage that a lot. But, you know, I also have great entrepreneurial friends. I also have people that I can reach out to and say, man, this was a crap week. Like, how's your week going? Right. But I think you need to be able to build a community of people to just have a conversation with. And I think most of us are just afraid to make that call, right? Like we know there's people that can help us, but we're like, oh, well, why would we put that on them? But I think what you need to remember is that every interaction is a two-way street, and it's very likely that other person also needed to talk to you too.
Yeah.
We refuse to even make that call, right?
Yeah. That is true. That is true. I mean, having a person to speak to, that is definitely, you don't need to go to betterhelp.ca every time. You don't need that. You need a person who cares about you. I think you need having a partner or a friend or a business co-founder or something. Definitely helps. I cannot agree more. You have interviewed and podcasted like for with so many people, Kelly, and I'm sure there's like some like funny moments, some like crazy moments, and is there any moments that you want to share from your podcasting 170 plus episodes? Is there any good moments that you'd like to share from the business development podcast? I'm sure there are many.
Yeah. You know, at this point, like I said, I think I'm probably sitting somewhere near 120 interviews, and they've all been incredible. They've all been incredible. From interview 1 to interview, I think the other day I recorded interview 165, I think, or 166. Or sorry, no, 200. I'm recording into 200s. My apologies. We're into like 265.
Oh, you are? I'm not surprised at all. So.
Yeah.
You say 2000, I'll say, yeah, Kelly, let's go.
Yeah, we're about 100 episodes ahead in recordings, which is unbelievable. But dude, it's, you know what has surprised me the most in the whole thing is just the willingness of entrepreneurs to help other entrepreneurs. I've spoken with people who are brand new entrepreneurs. I've spoken with people who sold their business for $419 million, and they're still in it. They're still in it to support the next generation, right? You know, my pitch has always been, help me help the next generation of entrepreneurs and business owners because you have accomplished it. You are experts in your field. You literally wrote the book. Many of the people I interviewed have wrote the book on their subject of expertise, right? It's like, they may not find the book if we don't have this conversation. We need to show them it's there, right? And so the willingness of just exceptional people to take an hour out of their day and meet with me, someone they've never met before that they wouldn't know from a hole in the wall, it's been absolutely incredible. It's been incredible.
Got it. And when it comes to numbers and the business game, sometimes people can be like, I mean, because everyone's having a day and things like that. And I mean, things like kindness and empathy are definitely needed. And how do you see that playing a role in the business world? Because it's obviously a given, but at the same time, you're dealing with so many things, and then they have so many decisions to make. They just don't have the time to be empathetic and not just to people, but also to situations, right?
Yeah. I think the secret is to treat everybody with kindness and respect and understand that like life is happening, right? Once again, we talked about this in the very beginning of the show. You don't know what just happened to that person that day. If someone calls you and says, hey, I got to cancel this meeting, it's likely not because they're pissed off at you or they don't want to attend the meeting. You don't know what happened, and they don't owe you an explanation, really. And so
Got it.
I think we have to remember that if we can come back to them and say, hey, you know what? Absolutely. I don't know what's going on with you. I hope you're okay. And I very much look forward to our next meeting. You're going to get that next meeting.
Yeah.
If you take that the other way around and you say, what the hell, man? We booked this 4 weeks ago and you're canceling on me. You're probably never getting that meeting. And so kindness and empathy, it doesn't just go a long way. It is the way. It's the only
100%,
way.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because
Yeah.
I so believe it. I cannot agree more at all. Thanks for sharing that. For anyone, because listening and who wants to, like, in their young 20s, who wants to start the business journey,
Yeah.
what do you tell them? And probably it's some of it is speaking to our younger self as well. So what would you tell them? What would be some encouragement for anyone? Hey, this looks huge. It looks sounds great.
Yeah.
And the context here is, like, often people look at the shiny object, right? Often look at, hey, he got this new BMW, he got this new
Yeah.
award, and, like, but there's a ton of effort behind it. People
Yeah.
often don't see that, and there's a lot of struggle behind it. And so anyone willing to anyone looking at the shiny object and motivated to, hey, yeah, I need to have that. I need to have that, the new Lamborghini or the BMW, right? So how do you speak to that? Because especially with the algorithmic world that we live in today, with social media and things like that, then there's a lot of marketing towards shiny objects in the world today. So how do we coach them, and how do we encourage them to do more business? And also, let me add one other thing to the context, is because I'm also seeing and it's my observation, there's also a commitment phobia, right? People are afraid to commit a lot of things these days. I don't know why, but I'm seeing that. And they're super afraid of even some of the basic things. So coming from that context, how do we encourage the next generation of, like, the business owners?
Yeah. You had asked me earlier, what I think leads to success in business. And I genuinely think that any business owner, you mentioned that it's hard and you may have to work 24 hours all the time, right? Like, it is what it is. The reality is I still put in crazy long weeks. Why? Because I run a business development podcast. I run a business development company. I'm a parent.
Right.
I'm a partner. And I have clients to work with, coaching clients. And so I'm very, very busy. Every hour is accounted for in my life. But I'm intrinsically motivated to succeed. I love succeeding, and I hate losing. And I've always hated losing. And I think that motivation has always made sure that I went the extra mile. If I needed to put in that extra hour, I did, right? I figured it out. I figured out how to win. I didn't really take losing like as an option. And I think almost all business owners that I've talked to on a certain level operate that same way. They're so intrinsically motivated with success or with whatever they want to achieve that they do put in that extra time. And so you have to care about what you do enough to be able to put in that extra time, or it's not going to be successful for you. You're not going to part-time run a business to success. It just doesn't happen, not in my experience. The other thing that I would suggest is that
quick thought. I mean, didn't mean to interrupt, but, like, there is this word that I hear a lot in terms of, like, quote unquote side hustle, and does it really work, or is it just like it's good to talk about it, but it only works when you're full time, because you said, like, it doesn't work as a side. I've seen it not too attractive as a side hustle because I couldn't give the attention and the effort. But what are your thoughts about it as well? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I actually do believe in the side hustle. I just also believe that eventually it becomes the hustle.
Yeah.
Most people don't just start a business. Most of them were working as employees, right? And there's always that, like, super weird transition period where you're a bit afraid to make the jump because you're not sure that you could make it on the side hustle. But I don't think anybody starts a side hustle, Vijay, with the idea that will always be a side hustle. I think in almost all experiences that I've experienced it with people I've talked about, they want to move full time to their side hustle. And so to me, I still think any side hustle is a hustle. They're trying to bridge that gap, and they will. If they're committed to it, they'll figure it out. And then it just becomes the business they care about, right?
Got it. So we spoke about a lot of business development in podcasts. I'd like to ask you about, like, what are the things that you do otherwise when how do you unwind otherwise, and how do you unwind and relax when you're not doing business development or podcasting? How do you relax and how do you unwind? I think it's important for any business owner to be unwinded and be ready for the next battle, right?
I'm getting better at it. I am in recovery. I'm in recovery on this one. I work really hard.
Got it.
I work really hard and I struggle to unwind. So I am not a good example on how to unwind. I'm getting
Got
better
it.
at it. I definitely try to take the weekends for myself and my family now, and I'm doing a lot more to put blocks in that, like, I'm not doing this on the weekend, or if I am working on the weekend, I'm only working between say like 9 and noon, and I'm trying to get rid of the phone because I might have show production for the Sunday show or whatever that I need to do that I didn't get done during the week. But
Right.
I think there is no way to unwind without making a conscious choice. And I think it's funny because when I think about being an employee, Vijay, that's the thing I miss the most.
Right.
The thing I miss the most about being an employee is being able to shut off at 5 o'clock. And as an entrepreneur, I've never been able to shut off at 5 o'clock, right? And you know what? It's my own damn fault. Like, I started the business development podcast, I started coaching, I run a business development firm. Like, it is my own doing, right? But one of the things that I have to think about now is, okay, now that we've started to achieve some real success here, how do I get some of that time back where I can then enjoy more of the life that I was hoping for, more of the freedoms that I was hoping to achieve? Because I think most entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs with the thought that they're going to achieve so much freedom, and then they find themselves working harder and longer than they ever have in their entire life. And so I think we all struggle with that, and I think we got to find our way. And I would say right now I'm in recovery. I'm figuring out how to claw back more of my own time to enjoy with my family. And I would say one of the things that I really enjoy is a weekend trip away. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but honestly, I think because I work so much from home, being able to escape my home and go to like Kananaskis for a weekend, or heck, Calgary for a weekend, whatever it is, just get away. It doesn't have to be far.
Right.
You may need to distance yourself from your life to get that true reset that you want.
Yeah. Got it. No, there's something I'd like to, my personal experience, and I'm 14 years in marriage and things like that, and have a young kid he's a preteen and growing. And something I realized, Kelly, growing is like, you don't have to take that like a 1 week trip. You don't have to take that cruise with your partner. And I think what I understood, I'm learning as a husband and as a partner. Just have a minute. Like, do you have a minute to have coffee? I mean, can we look at the sunset and, hey, look at the new birds in our backyard? I mean, some small things like that, probably 2 minutes or 1 minute, that seem to go a long way in terms of like unwinding, and also build better relationship with your family and people around you, right? Because often I'm like so motivated to go edit the next video, go write the next email to the client, prepare the deck. I mean, constantly, right? I mean, always want to go finish that, because you always have a never-ending end of tasks that you're always excited to keep working on, right? So I'm very similar that way. But I've told myself, okay, no, I'm going to probably spend those like smaller 5 minutes or 10 minutes gaps when I get, okay, what can you do after the quick lunch break? 2 minutes with your partner. So that seemed to help. But if anyone listening find it useful, I think that would be that from a family relationship point of view, because I can get so lost in running with a business at the same time. What is money without people around you, right? I mean, that's where I come from.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think I've struggled with it as a business owner, trying to grow a business and realizing that the more time that I can invest into the growth, hopefully the better the outcome will be. Maybe not, but once again, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen, right? So I think
100%.
you definitely end up on this rat race where you are like, you're working really freaking hard, and especially if you're managing a content strategy, like I know you 100%. Are and I am. Especially when you still got to put out content twice a week or whatever you're putting your content out. Plus, run your business. Plus, make sure your clients are happy. Plus, make sure your family's happy. One of the things that I've learned is that work-life balance is total bullshit. And I've talked with enough people across the industries, across various levels of success to say, yes, it's achievable, but it's not always achievable the way that you hope it is, which kind of sucks. One of the takeaways that I kind of got after talking to a lot of people, where I say, hey, did you ever achieve work-life balance? They'll say, yeah, now I work 4 hours a week, but I spent 10 years working 10 hours a day. Right? Like, I feel like work-life balance is very much achievable, but in the short term, or especially in the building phase, you have to be very deliberate about
Yeah.
making the time to spend with your
Yeah.
family, about making the time, but then recognizing that, yeah, like eventually I think it is possible. But I think in the growth stage of a business, maybe the first 10
Yeah.
years, you're going to work really hard, and there's not going to be a whole lot of alternative to that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, because we didn't want to finish the summer without not going anywhere. We didn't go to too many places, but we wanted to make at least that one trip. So we went to BC, and the view couldn't be greater. The lake and the mountains and the golf course is just amazing. But you know what? I was sitting there having a call with the guest and for the podcast and working on the thing, and that gave me a lot of fun, and I had so much fun working there. It's not that I didn't enjoy the view less or anything like that. And at one point I realized, oh, work is so fun, and the work-life balance is like, yeah, it's absolute BS. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's just a fancy corporate term, I would say. Oh, you have great work-life balance and things like that. But as a business owner, I don't think you can afford to have that, and it doesn't have to be. When you have not structured your life around your work, then there is no talk about work-life balance.
Well, and you just gave a prime example to where maybe you might be able to find it. And maybe you can find it in working during the vacation, in working in BC, in working in the mountains, in working in Mexico, wherever you are. Maybe a way for you to enjoy the evening with your family, but still do the job you need to do during the day. And maybe that is one of the true perks of being an entrepreneur, is that you can choice tomorrow and say, yeah, I'm going to Mexico for the next 30 days, right? But I think that's it. It's like, you don't get the same privilege an employee gets as a business owner. You just don't. The employee can sit back and the company will primarily run itself, likely, without them. As a business owner, you're too involved, and the company likely will not run, at least not in the first 10 years, very effectively without you being an integral part of it. And so you have to find ways to enjoy life while working hard on your business. So something amazing happened at one point, Kelly. I don't know if this is around COVID or not. And I've used to watch a lot of movies. I was a movie buff and things like that. I was an employee for a long time in corporate career and whatnot. I used to wait for the weekend. I used to watch a Netflix movie or whatever otherwise on a Friday or a Saturday. Not that it is wrong or anything, but I don't even feel the urge to watch anything like that. I don't want to watch the next episode on Netflix or anything. I don't feel any urge to do it. Very rarely, okay, let's watch a movie. It's very rare these days. And I don't feel unsatisfied of not watching a movie. Totally okay with it. So that I think is, I find that to be a real blessing in terms of like doing your business. So I don't have the urge for it, and I'm super happy of not watching it. Right. So that is a shift in mindset, I think. You do have to be careful with that one. Not necessarily for Netflix, but there were a lot of things that you enjoyed and found value out of before you were an entrepreneur too, right? And I'm telling you this from experience, right? Like,
no, I'd like to learn. Please tell me more.
I have to, like I said, what I'm trying to dig back now is I still want to perform high performance. I still want to grow my coaching business. I still want to help clients. I still want to do the podcast at the same level I've always been able to do it at. But I also want to find time to enjoy my life, because at the end of the day, I have a life that has nothing to do with the podcast, being a business development expert, or running a business, right? And I think we have to be very careful. And like I said, I'm working now, recovering, trying to claw some of that. Where is Kelly in all of this? And I think we all have to be a little bit careful about that, because we can become so wrapped up in our identities that is the business that we forget that we're still an entire individual outside of it.
Yeah. You know what we have done as a family, was something that we've enjoyed doing, is like we don't go out shopping on weekends. We don't take a trip on weekends. If we are traveling, it's mostly on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday. No problem. Because I know I can connect from there, I can work from there. And when we go to the mountains, especially here, I mean, there's absolutely no crowd. We enjoy the view. I love that. I mean, I was not able to, like, I don't have to wait for the Friday evening or anything. So it's totally fine. We enjoy that. But thanks for that tip. Yeah, sure. I should not forget the ice creams that I loved. I should not forget the things that I love doing. But thanks for that.
And I get it. And I get it from the standpoint of like, you're like, oh, well, what happens is you start to feel like it's a waste of time. At least that's what happens to me, is that I'll be like, wow, I'm doing this thing that I enjoy in this moment, but it's like, I could be producing next week's show and getting ahead of things, or I could be inviting new guests to the show or whatever it is, or I could be doing show planning or business planning.
Right.
I think it's important to remember that like you can set aside time for those things during the week and still get them done and enjoy. It's not this or that. It's this and that. And it's very important in your entrepreneurial journey to like, remember yourself. And like I said, I'm 4 years into mine, and I'm only just realizing like I don't want to go the rest of my entrepreneurial journey forgetting who I am.
Got it. And just wrapping on this topic, like, so where do you draw the line, Kelly? I mean, like, of course you can, there's endless list of tasks that needs to be done anyway. Yeah. Like we can keep working on it. Like, where do you draw the line? Is that a tip or a tactic that you normally follow to draw the line? I'm learning it. I'm sure like you have come across it.
Yeah. I don't know if I've been great at drawing the line.
I struggle there.
Yeah.
I have struggles there.
I think, like I said, I'm trying to do better on weekends. I think for me, that's a line that I'm trying to establish. And that's for me, dude. This has nothing to do with like none of my clients work on the weekends. This is very much me. And so what I'm trying to do is get to a point where like Saturday will come, and maybe I might do a little bit of work before noon, but let's say like noon till Monday morning. I'm trying not to focus on work, right? Is it always possible? No. Are you going to have to take calls sometimes? Yeah. Is something going to come up? Yeah. And absolutely handle it. Like, I'm not going to say that there's any cut and dry rules. You have to decide what you're comfortable with in the moment. Maybe you're at that building stage where you don't care and you're willing to put whatever time it takes. And you know what? I'm not going to fault you for that, because I did the same thing. But I think you will hit a point where you realize, okay, holy cow, I think I've done this for 2 years straight. And now I need to figure out, who am I? How do I get me back? And when that time comes, you might have to go a little bit in another direction. You might have to do a little bit more personal care than business care for a while.
Yeah.
There's no rules, man. You got to figure out what works for you.
I had a friend or a colleague. I think someone asked me like, so how was it going? What did you learn from doing business? Things like something. I'm enjoying it. On one side, on the other side is also self-discovery. Sometimes I write out quotes and everything, and they're mostly like, sometimes naive, sometimes at the bottom of my heart, this is what I feel. But at the same time, it is a journey of self-discovery. And what I enjoy, what I'm learning through that process is it's not the destination actually. And it's probably cliche, but I don't know. But like, the journey I seem to enjoy a lot than the actual destination itself. And finally, when we get the payment is great, but at the same time, I think the journey is what I seem to cherish a little bit more than the actual end result itself. So that is something I've realized.
I go back and forth on that one.
Yeah.
I think there's times where I've just been like, why can't I just skip to the end? It's like this sucks right now. I would rather just skip to the end where it's good and we're wealthy and life's great and we can do what we want. And then the other side of it, I've realized that you have to enjoy the small wins or you'll never get there. Like I think I've come to that realization too, where it's like if you don't celebrate something along the way, you're going to get discouraged and quit. And so you have to find ways to enjoy the journey. And I think like, especially, I guess, and we try not to think about it, but tomorrow's never promised, right? And so you may never get there. You may physically never get there. Like it just is what it is. And so I think, I'm going to work on doing better to enjoy the journey. But once again, I think it's a work in progress because we all have the dream of what we want. I want to be a #1 show in Canada. That's what I want. I want that.
Right.
And I'm striving hard to get there.
Right.
But you know what I mean? I'm at 32 today, so I need to just celebrate that I'm at 32 today. Like, it's a big deal. But I think because I'm so focused on being #1 or top 10 or whatever it is, that you can you can decide, well, what's 32, right? But 32 is pretty good too. And you have to find ways to say, okay, like, I'm not #1 today, but I'm 32, so I'm going to take it.
I mean, something I've always like wanted and then tried when they say climbing the ladder, Kelly, something I felt, and this is like this is how I feel about it. Some of these things, right? I've climbed the ladder. I've been the director. I've been to that, like whatever the fancy dream salaries.
Yeah.
I've been there, but never enjoyed it, right? I mean, like I couldn't
Yeah.
enjoy it. I mean, like I've seen those big salaries and things like that, but I would be actually now making much less. And you and I have talked about it briefly when we we're having lunch, and I make much less now, but the kind of reward that it gives is like so different, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be the title, the vice president or the founder or whatever. The title doesn't make any sense to me at all. These are just titles for, do you have a LinkedIn profile? Yes, you have it. Yeah, here it is. That's it, right? But it is, to me personally, I don't relate with that at all. Because I'm not an employee of my title, because like I am me, and like I do me, right? So, and people do, and you do you, right? So that's something I learned in terms of like, because people look at the shiny object, or people want to have that vice president role. Nothing wrong with it, but at the same time, see how it affects you as a person, and then see if it really keeps you, and don't lose your soul or identity along the way. That's what I understood being in the corporate for a long time.
Well, yeah, and it's like by the time you're a VP of a big company, the pressure is immense, right? Like, You're not just like, oh, I'm VP and I collect this big paycheck and I can go do whatever I want. That's not how that works.
No,
right?
no, because like what ends up happening is, like, even I was writing a post about it. Like, let's say someone's spending an entire decade becoming a doctor or whatever, right? I mean, they are in the $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 kind of salary, and what becomes a handcuff is their lifestyle, right? They have 3 BMWs, they have a bigger house and things like that. So that becomes a handcuff itself. And I want people to be free. And like, you want to be able to wake up on a Wednesday morning, go have a lunch where you want to do the client meeting and finish it off. You want to come spend back and do the thing that you want to do, right? I mean, I don't see them being happy, because I go to these big cities. I just came back from Vancouver from a conference the other day. And like, and then I keep speaking to all these like the directors and the vice presidents and presidents, whatnot. Some of them are really not happy at all. I mean, like who have climbed the ladder, and that does something about it, because I'm trying to learn from people ahead of me, right? People, okay, they're already in their 50s and things like that. What do I learn from them? Oh no, I don't want to end up in that space. Although what if the shiny object is attractive? Again, coming back to that point, I don't want, just because it is a 500,000 salary, that doesn't mean it gives you happiness, right? So I want to be in a position where even if I draw less, I want to be rather fulfilled and happier than having the bigger title and the bigger paycheck. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and a $500,000 salary comes with a $500,000 responsibility too, right? Like it's very important to remember that you don't just make more money and have less responsibility. That's not how it works, right? Yeah. And so typically, you're right. Typically, it comes with a massive time commitment, and that ability to shut down might be the price, right? The price might be that you're never off, and that's going to lead to a lot of struggles on its own. So I agree. It's like the ideal situation is to have a business or have an income that also grants you freedom of time.
Yeah, 100%. So Kelly, I'd like to run you through some like quick, funny, rapid fire questions. So we'll to get to know it a little bit. We'll start with BD and podcast, and then we'll run into few other questions, and as we get closer to the wrap, right? So from business development point of view, so if business development were to be a sport, what sport would it be?
Oh my goodness. That's a really, really good question. Oh, I'm trying to think of a sport where people have to work together, like truly, on both teams. And there's just not a lot of sports like that. Yeah. Oh, goodness. That is a really good question. You know what? I don't have a good answer for you on that one, Vijay. I don't know if that sport exists.
Got it. Okay, and another one on business development. If you could create a business development superhero, I'm not asking you who that superhero would be, but like, what would be their superpower?
Their superpower would be their ability to connect and build relationship with other people in a way that is mutually beneficial to both. They don't take advantage of people. They build mutually beneficial relationships. Yeah.
Got it. Good, nice answer. Yeah, thank you. If we could, for podcasting, right? And this is a fun one. I think you'll enjoy it. If you were to record your podcast, like let's say literally from anywhere in the world, where would you want to record it from, and then why?
Oh my goodness. Put me on a beautiful beach in Mexico right now as we head into winter. And why? Because we live in Canada and it's obvious, dude. We're about to head into minus 30 and I'd rather be out of here.
Yeah. Got it. So like while doing the podcast, what is like something like the funniest thing that ever happened while doing an episode?
Oh my goodness. You know what? You ever get mush mouth? Does that ever happen to you when you're talking and suddenly you just can't really say anything?
Like a lisp and things like that.
I can't remember once. I was having this conversation with somebody and there was a word that I just couldn't say. I couldn't say it. It was an introduction and I'd written a word that I physically could not say. And I was laughing my ass off trying to say this word. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to record this later because right now I can't. And it was awesome because we both had a great laugh heading into the show. The show ended up being perfect, but my gosh, yeah, there apparently are words I cannot say.
Oh man. Yeah, I struggle with it sometimes, especially the introduction part, right? Because I've struggled with it. I've messed with it, but like I struggle there. I know.
Totally.
So one or two books that you think that changed your life?
Oh my goodness. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Classic. It's like 100 years
Great
old.
book.
It's incredible.
Great book.
Everybody should read it. The second book is maybe a little less known. And I've had the author on my show twice now. His name is Dr. Jack Schaefer, and he writes two books. One book is called The Like Switch, and another book is called The Truth Detector. And they are incredible, incredible books. He was an FBI interrogator, and his job was actually to flip
Right.
enemy spies to work for an opposing government. And he is absolutely incredible at the job of building connection with people to that level. And those skills are transferable to anything in life, from business to parenting to being a good partner to being a good communicator. And I would highly, highly recommend his books. And I would say start with The Like Switch. It's a great book.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. What is the first thing you do every morning? Like a ritual. I mean, like it's like a great habit that you develop over time. Like probably running or jogging. What is the first thing that you have to do it every day?
I have to have my morning coffee.
There you go.
I am not going to be like I'm that guy who goes jogging first thing. No, man. I get up, I come downstairs, and I grab my morning coffee, and that is like the way to start your day, man. You got to start it with your coffee.
Got it. That's great. And we all have our dreams and aspirations. And let's say you want to have that's a business leader that who you would want to have dinner with. Who would that be?
You know what? I want to have Mark Cuban on the show. It was funny because when I got the show introduction made for our show, he actually quoted Mark Cuban. And I just like Mark Cuban as a person. He just seems like an incredibly down-to-earth guy. And I've interviewed a couple people who actually know him. And I was like, man, I hope one day I get to have Mark Cuban on the show. So there you go. That's
he's a great guest from Shark Tank. Yeah,
totally
great. Yeah. And biggest, okay. So in business, there are a lot of things that people believe in. And what do you think some of the top one or two business myths that you wish actually disappear in the business world?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people right now who don't think that building relationship in business matters. And I think it's a new generation of people who have grown up on the internet, who've grown up with chat or WhatsApp or whatever else.
Right.
And I genuinely think that if we do not get better at teaching the next generation how to communicate, how to push past these uncomfortable feelings, because that's what we're doing. The uncomfortable feelings are there and we're just not addressing them. And so I think as, millennials or Gen X's, we really have to spend a lot of time with this next generation to try to instill communication skills, to try to instill the power of relationship in building trust. Because almost everything is done on trust and emotion, right? People think it's all about price, but price is only the secondary factor. You have to have trust first.
Right.
You have to have relationship first. If you have trust in relationship, you can always negotiate price. Without trust in relationship, price ain't going to matter. And so we have to get to that. We need to get back to building real relationships. And that's one of my goals, is to try to
that is very true. Someone showed me a video from the 1980s or 1990s. I could be wrong, but from a school campus, right? And all kids were talking and they were having fun and like they were running around and things like that. And they showed a clip from probably in the last few years, and pretty much I didn't see many people talking. I saw like on their phones or like, right, so, or on their headphones. Nothing wrong with it, but at the same time, those kids seem, the kids from the 80s and 90s, they seem to be a lot more happier and cheerful, and not that the younger ones are less cheerful, but at the same time I don't see people connecting and talking to each other, to your point.
Me and you are from a very different generation, right? Like we grew up in both. Right?
Yeah.
Like we have a perspective that no one else has. And I think as millennials, it's our obligation to try to bridge that gap, right?
Yeah.
We really are the last generation that lived both, right? We lived the time before cell phones, before internet, and we lived the time after internet. And we've had equal time on both sides. And so I think it's really important as millennials to take our responsibility to help the next generation, because it's up to us. It really is. We're the only ones who can understand both sides.
Absolutely. And here's a fun one. I mean, like, I know food is something like people crave. It's sometimes a weakness. Like, what's your like favorite guilty pleasure snack?
Pizza, man. Give me pizza. I'd eat pizza 5 days a week if I could.
I love pizza. Pizza is great. And something about adventure and things like that. What is something you would call the most adventurous thing you've ever done in life? Would it be the podcasting, or like what would you call it the most adventurous thing?
Oh goodness! I recently became a parent, so I have a 10-month-old kid who I absolutely love, and I'm excited for that adventure. I'm excited for the adventure that matters, I think. Right? I don't see an adventure that matters more than being a parent at this point. So I don't know, man. I've done a lot of cool things in my life. I've flown planes. I've been around the world on various trips. But yeah, you know what? I'm really excited for the next adventure, which is just being a great parent and a good partner, and seeing what comes next, man. I think we can get really caught up in what we've done, but what we really need to get caught up in is what we're going to do.
Right. If you could instantly master a skill, like any skill, what would it be?
Communication, 100%. And it's funny because I teach communication, but I am by no means an expert. And I would be hard-pressed, I think, to find true experts in communication. Yet it's the most powerful thing. If you knew how to communicate right, there's almost nothing you couldn't do.
Got it. We're almost getting close to the wrap, Kelly. I mean, like, I had just a few more questions here. So what is something that the tool that you cannot work without?
My computer?
Okay, what is the second one?
100% my phone. I do business development the good old-fashioned way. I make a lot of phone calls to the right people, and I try to book real face-to-face meetings. And I think if there's one tool that the people are trying to forget about, it's your phone. Don't forget about your phone.
Got it.
Your voice is the most powerful thing that you have.
Do you have a favorite AI tool? Like any AI software that you can't live without?
Oh my goodness! At this point, ChatGPT.
100%.
If I had a second one, I would say my meeting summary app, my Tactic.ai meeting summary app, is also excellent.
Right. Got it. So you have spoken to so many people, probably, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there. What is one or two of the best pieces of advice that you've ever received from your podcasting experience from the guests?
It all comes down to confidence, right? Nothing happens without confidence, right? And confidence doesn't mean that you know everything and that you have every idea. It means that you're willing to try and figure it out as you go. And so understand that almost no entrepreneur starts with all the answers. Most of them start with very little of the answers. And it's one step at a time, just like Vijayan said early on. You don't have to see the whole picture. You just have to know what the next step is. And every big business was built one small step at a time. Nobody saw the big picture at first.
Got it. What is something that you knew before you started podcasting? Or what is something you already knew? You wish you knew?
Oh, that I wish I knew. Okay, that's a little different.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really good question, Vijay, because I think if I would have really known what it was going to take, I'm not confident that I would have done it the way that I did it. And I think it was
Right.
because I knew so little that I got so
Right.
invested on figuring it out. And the more that I figured out, the more I wanted to do it. So I think that had I known what I know now, I may not have become as good of a podcaster as I became because I had to learn it. It was truly the
Very well
enjoyment in
said.
learning the skills that made
Right.
it worthwhile. It wasn't, if you know it, that doesn't make it worthwhile. It's learning
Right.
it that made it worthwhile. And everybody can do this. If I can do this, it's anybody can do this. I knew nothing when I got into podcasting, nothing at all. I didn't know how to edit
Right.
audio. I didn't know what good recording equipment was. I didn't know how to use the script or how to make a video or how to plan a show, any of it. It was all learned along the way. And I take immense pride in the fact that I was able to learn it all and that we have achieved what we've been able to achieve thus far. And so don't be afraid, I guess. At the end of the day,
Got it.
everybody's learning, and you can still
Yeah.
become excellent at whatever you choose to do.
Got it. This is probably the last question because you're both in the business development and podcasting area. And of course, any business owner would find, I think, valuable. And there's a lot of effort that people putting around strategy. Oh, this is a strategy we got to run with. And this is how we got to strategize and things like that. The next roadmap for the year or two and the strategies allowed and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What is more important, the strategy or the execution?
Well, they're equally important because you can't execute a strategy you don't have, not typically anyway. And you definitely can't enact a strategy without execution. But I think what's more important is be okay with maybe not achieving the full picture and be okay with pivoting if it doesn't make sense or if something better comes along, right? Every great opportunity that's come into my business, I didn't see it coming. Every one of them.
Right.
It showed up as an opportunity on my doorstep. I recognized the opportunity and I took action on it, even though it wasn't part of my plan. So I think maybe the best piece of advice is if you have a plan, understand that something better might present itself and be okay with changing the plan to take on the new, better opportunity. Because that new, better opportunity, you might never see it coming. You just have to be ready to say yes.
Got it. Very, very well said. Kelly, that brings us to the closing. So where can people find you? For anyone listening.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. It's my world. So Kelly Kennedy on LinkedIn. You can find me on the Business Development Podcast, wherever you guys listen to your fine podcasts, where I'm sure you're listening to this one. And capitalbd.ca. So www.capitalbd.ca, and that's for business development services and for booking coaching. So would love to work with any of you.
Kelly, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to sit down with you, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Every time I sit down with you, even when you were interviewing me, podcasting, I loved it. And our meetings, I love it. And you have a natural instinct of connecting with people, whether whatever introvert or extrovert, man. You're a great human being first. I think I appreciate that a lot, and I see that in every communication that you do. So your heart is at the right place. So I so enjoy every conversation that I have with you, and I'd love to do more shows with you. And thank you so much for being here and giving your valuable time. And I hope people listen to this and then get a lot of value. Thank you so much, and wish you all the very best in every show and every endeavor that you take in your business and in your life. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Vijay, and congratulations on the success of the Pathfinders. It's an excellent show.
Thank you, Kelly. Bye now.
Take care.
Yeah.